All right, let's get into it. So we saw
The last Star Wars movie
Yeah.
ever to be made
Star
ever
Wars
again.
Rise of Skywalker. We've been teasing it here for the last couple weeks.
Yes.
We went on the night it came out. Us and Dude and Pagoda and Dan, we all went. We had sushi,
Very good sushi.
very good sushi, and we went to opening night. We sat perfect seats,
Yeah.
GDX,
GDX in Oswego.
strapped in for the full experience. So, go.
Go. Okay.
What do you think?
Right off the bat. And again, spoilers.
Oh yeah, this is it, guys.
This is where spoilers start.
At some point later in this episode, we're gonna rank all the Star Wars movies. But for the next probably 30 minutes or so, we're gonna spoil this movie.
Yes. So right off the bat, the very opening scene of the movie is Kylo Ren going to a certain planet that you don't know about yet. He's walking into this like cave-like thing, and you immediately start hearing the Emperor and things going on in Kylo's brain, but yet the Emperor Palpatine's there, and you get to see him. So that right there, I loved. I loved that opening scene because it really set the tone for everything. Like, holy shit,
Really,
they
that was
didn't.
a very ominous scene.
Yes, and you didn't really know where it was going to begin with because Kylo's there. I guess I don't really know why he went there, but I think he realized he was hearing him in his head. He finally was like calling him to this place. And I liked that a lot. I thought, oh man, this is really going to start something crazy, And then it jumps over to, Rey and what she's doing. The big thing in the beginning of the movie was that it would jump from Kylo to Rey to Finn to Poe to Leia to Kylo to Poe to Rey.
Yeah, it's very
constantly
fast moving. This has been a huge criticism of the movie in general. But the beginning of this movie, yeah, it's jump cuts. It's very fast. It's covering a lot of exposition quickly, and it's also catching you up on all the characters and what they've been doing very quickly.
And I understand that they needed to do that. Like, they have to catch you up on things. It just takes a while for all that to converge.
Yeah, it didn't. This is not something that overly bothered me, honestly. I didn't mind the start to the movie. I think it gave it a kind of a manic excitement. And I don't want to spend a lot of time rehashing all that exposition.
No, we don't need to at all.
And I'm glad that they didn't spend a lot of time with it, really.
Yeah. I am too. It was somewhat
disjointed.
Yes, disjointed and a little bit overbearing because I was like, man, can we just stay in a spot for a second and figure out what they're doing? Because I felt like they were cutting in the middle of what they were doing to go to somebody else and then coming back to finish up what they had started. Like normal scenes would play out a little bit, So that was my only thing in the beginning. And that's really all I need to talk about with the beginning. I guess it's not right off the bat, but at one point they go to a desert because they go on a national treasure hunt, right?
Yeah.
So they have to find what was it called?
Wayfinder.
The Wayfinder. And the Wayfinder is what was going to get them to find the Emperor and be able to kill him, get rid of him.
For some reason, they felt a need that this needed to be done as quickly as possible, despite having no ominous threat that's told them that it needs to be done quickly.
Nope. Or a plan of any sort. Like, they just start throwing everything together right then. Once they figure out that the Emperor's there and controlling things, and Rey has this feeling and talks to Kylo, and they got to go find him and kill him and win everything. So that's what they start doing. But before any of that, so they go to this desert planet. What planet was that? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
They go to this desert planet. They find this dagger with writing on it. And the dagger with writing on it is what tells you where the next Wayfinder is.
It's called a MacGuffin, Jerry.
A MacGuffin, yes. That's their MacGuffin.
Yeah.
And
this movie is chock full of MacGuffins.
And so they find it right away. They find it real easy. But in doing so, then Kylo was chasing them, and they end up getting Chewie. They capture him. Really cool scene with Rey. Two really cool scenes with Rey in that on that planet. One where she cuts Kylo Ren's spaceship, like his what is it?
It's like a TIE interceptor.
It's like a
TIE
TIE fighter of some sort,
it's
right?
a TIE interceptor.
Well, she cuts the whole one side off of it. One of his wings, cuts it off. She's running away from him. He's speeding towards her.
With the lightsaber that she has that she didn't feel worthy to hold 5 minutes earlier.
Right.
Even though she's had it for the last 2 movies.
Yeah, exactly. And she jumps up in the air, flipping around, cuts the wing off. He crashes. She thinks like, oh, I've won everything. And then he walks out of the flames towards her. And then they have a force battle between a carrier ship and she like starts pulling it towards her. Well, then Kylo Ren starts pulling it away from her, and she gets like all worked up and mad enough to where she shoots lightning out of her hand, which you've never seen before from anyone except for the Emperor. Yoda could do it, but he never would because he's not going to do a dark side power like that. But she does it and then blows the ship up, and they immediately think Chewie's dead. And then they realize he's not dead. And then they figure out that they just need to go immediately to the ship and save him.
Yeah, they need to get on a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, like we're going to fly directly to that Star Destroyer and go save Chewie. And who cares about everything else
And
in this
luckily,
movie?
we have this phenomenal little MacGuffin that some bounty hunter lady that was going to kill me.
Yes.
2 seconds later, she's our best friend. It gave us a pass.
Amazingly, she happened to have this pass.
That's going to let us get on this Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Without any repercussions or
reason,
drama. Yes.
yeah.
We just get a little pog
Yeah.
that we found 5 minutes ago.
Yes. So we can pick it apart like that and say there are goofy things. Are there plot holes in the beginning? Yes.
Oh boy, there's a lot of plot holes. This movie in general, and I don't know, I know we're kind of going through it here, but I'll just say overall, it has a lot of plot issues and has a lot of pacing issues. I don't care about plot holes at all, or very little. It is annoying that half of this movie is a national treasure hunt, like the movie National Treasure.
Right.
And it's chock full of, like I said, MacGuffins. And if you don't know what that is, that means like it's like an irrelevant item that only exists to move you forward to the next plot point.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily a bad thing in a movie.
No.
But they can be a bad thing. And if you choose to fixate on it, it's annoying. But if you just let it go, chill,
Just let it happen.
it's fine. Whatever. But it is a kind of annoying because there's like 4 or 5 moments of that. Like this thing that happened 2 seconds ago now allows us to do this next thing.
And it's the reason it's somewhat of an issue is just because it's so apparent.
It's very apparent.
It's not covered up. It's not nothing helps it along other than that one thing. Like that one specific thing that they needed, you get, and then you can go do the next specific thing that you need to do.
And you got this specific thing by complete happenstance.
Yes, exactly.
Like they at one point they go to this planet. All right. And they come in contact with this mercenary or bounty hunter that Poe apparently has a history with. Mm-hmm. And she's great. And they have a lot of funny scenes, especially at the end.
Yeah, they do.
Very funny.
Yes.
And did you know that's what's her name? Carrie Russell?
No. Is that who it is?
Yeah.
Because I knew she was in the movie.
Yeah. And they only show her eyes.
Yeah, you never actually see her.
They're going to do more with that character.
I hope so.
You don't get Carrie Russell and then just do that.
I forgot that she was in the movie, but yeah, I knew she was.
But anyway, so, they're at this planet and bam, like she's got a gun to his head. She's like, I'm going to kill you, you dirty piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then like 2 seconds later, she's their best friend and she's helping them.
Yes, they explain what they're doing, and then she's all of a sudden like, okay, well then you have to follow me because I know exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And then
she
does.
happens to give them that coin that gets them, happens to later on get them on the Star Destroyer after they happen to fall through a pit. and happen to save a snake who happens to knock a hole in the wall so they can get out of the pit,
Yeah.
which even a Sith Lord can't
Well,
get out
you're-
of, which just happens to mean they stumble onto a dagger, which just happens to match up to a spot on the Death Star where they happen to find a
Yes.
Sith Wayfinder. I mean, it's just crazy how much of it there is, and it's
So-
lazy plot writing is what it is.
It is really, and I think it's because they just had to cover so much ground, and they had to have a reason to do these things. But in saying all of that, once they do find out where this Wayfinder is, when they go to the planet where the Death Star has crashed onto,
Before you get to talking about that, let's talk about what happens when they go onto the Star Destroyer, because I know that's one thing that really bothered you.
it did, just because. So they get their ship up. They're in the Falcon, right? Are they in the Falcon at that point? Yeah, they are.
No, they're not in the Falcon. They're in the Sith Lord ship
The Sith Lord.
that was crashed on.
Oh,
that
that's
desert
right.
planet.
Yeah, that's right. He was like a bounty hunter, wasn't he?
The Falcon,
A Sith bounty hunter?
Who had the Falcon?
A Jedi bounty hunter or something?
Lando took the Falcon and rescued him.
He did. And anyway, so they fly up there on that bounty hunter's ship, and they just land in one of the bays right off the bat because they have that chip that'll get them through, that gives them clearance onto the ship. So they get onto the ship, right? And as soon as they open the door, they come barreling out of this thing, shooting everyone right away.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as they get on the ship, they shoot everyone in sight. How do you figure that's going to work?
They don't even do that in A New Hope. I mean, they're trying to be sneaky.
Yeah, you want to be sneaky on this ship, right? Because you are obviously outgunned. There are so many people on this ship. Why would you just start shooting? Like, even if you kill everyone in that area, that very small area that you're in, someone's going to know that.
Right.
And they do right away because they immediately get caught. But
It's still a cool sequence.
It is cool
in general,
and I liked how it all ended up playing out.
but then
to
they
a point.
happen to have. Oh, I guess you just got lucky. You're about to get shot, and then it just so happens that
I'm the mole.
General Hux, the guy that's trying to kill you, turns out to be the mole, and then
that's-
just so happens to let you go.
So they talk about that earlier, that they were getting in the beginning of the movie. They talk about some information they got from a mole that's in the First Order, and so they get the information, but they don't really tell you what the information is. They didn't even really look at it yet. And then when they get onto the Star Destroyer, that's what he does. General Hux, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what he said? So they're going to kill Poe and Finn. They're literally going to murder them on the ship. He's like, dispatch them. We don't need them. So then General Hux says, I'll go. And he goes with them, and then he says, let me do it. I've wanted to do this for a long time. And then he turns and shoots the
firing squad.
Yeah, the whole firing squad. And then he turns to them and literally says, I'm the mole. And I thought that was super cheesy.
Yeah.
They could have had a little bit better writing there, but anyway, are you good with like the beginning part?
Yeah.
Because I think,
that's fine.
so they find all these things. Well, then how did they come to figure out that they needed to go to that one planet where the Death Star was?
Because that's where the other Sith holocron or Wayfinder was.
That's where it was, but they didn't know it at the time.
From C-3PO's memory, who...
by the way, they introduce a whole new character to the Star Wars world in...
And people are talking about this character, and I'm agree. It was hilarious.
He was absolutely hilarious. What's his name?
There was a lot of good funny moments in the movie.
Bulba Frick.
I don't remember what it was.
Bulba Frick, I think is... I know his last name's Frick, and I know it starts with a B. It's Bulba or Biba or Biba Frick, something like that. And Pagoda was sitting next to me, and he leans over, and he's like, it's like a drunk Russian. He's like, it's like a drunk Russian alien. And it was exactly like it, the way he talks and his whole little movements.
Yeah.
Really funny. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I did too. Everybody seems to like that character.
I hope he's in more stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just like, okay, well, it's in C-3PO's brain. Oh, unfortunately, C-3PO just can't tell us about it. So now we have to go on to the next MacGuffin so we can move the plot story forward. So they go anyway to that. And they're not concerned at all with wiping their friend's memory at all, even though he says, I just want to look at my friends one last time.
That was a sad part.
It was sad, but nobody cared.
Nope.
They didn't care
at
all. They're just like, I'll throw away that fucking droid. that droid that's been through 40 years of history
Yes.
and saved the empire or saved the rebellion.
Yeah.
Just wipe it. Not important.
And they did. They wiped everything.
Yes.
He ends up getting it back from R2.
Yeah,
though.
well, whatever. Anyway, that's how they get the maps, and that's how they get to Rey. In the meantime,
Is that Jakir or isn't that where they go, like Jakir or something like that?
I don't remember. But in the meantime, Rey kind of gives up, and she goes back to what is it, Octu or wherever she did her training with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And blows up her ship. She's like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna stay here
Forever.
Well, in the meantime, she finds out
Oh yeah.
the big reveal.
The big reveal where she is Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter.
Yeah, that's the big reveal, which nobody in the theater seemed to give a shit about. I didn't hear a single gasp.
Really? I guess I wasn't even paying attention to that.
I have big problems with this. All right, and this is probably of everything about this movie, this is my biggest issue.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. You want to get into it?
Yeah, I'd like to know why. I don't.
So that's the big gotcha moment of the whole movie. Rey, who is she? Who is Rey?
Yeah.
Who is she?
Is it Luke's daughter?
And after Last Jedi, we find out in the big reveal that was shocking. You're nobody.
Yeah.
Your parents are nobody. You're nobody. And none of us really truly believed it. But anyway, we find out in this circumstance that because plot, she's Emperor Palpatine's daughter. And why? Granddaughter. Why? What does that change about anything in this movie making her Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter? She could have had the same journey. All the same things could have happened. Could have had the same result. All of it without her being Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
why do it?
I don't know.
It ruins her storyline. The whole storyline of her character development at that moment is destroyed. Her character moment of I'm nobody who came from nothing.
Yeah.
I am nothing. The Force, and then we even find out at the end of The Last Jedi, that little kid, he gets the broom. We realize, listen, the Force is for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not for the Skywalkers, and it's not for these small groups of people. It's for all of us. It lives within all of us. It breathes within all of us. Rey is the example of that. From the shining star, she is the example of a nobody who's risen to become one of the most powerful, theoretically powerful Jedi that we've ever seen, seemingly without any training. But she's gotten to this point, and you're ready for the resolution of her story to ring true. Nope, she's a Palpatine.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I never
And
thought
you
of
just
it that
think about
way.
it and you're like, why?
It does ruin that, doesn't it? And the whole reason he wants to get her back is because, if she kills him, then she can take over the Sith and get his powers.
You could have done all that without.
And then
her
the
being-
whole deity thing,
he was trying to do that with Luke Skywalker. That's not his kid.
right? No, I know.
So she, it's not enough for her to just be a powerful Jedi or a powerful Force user, because we've seen at this point we're not really sure if she's Jedi material. I mean, she's firmly not in control of her emotions, not in control of her fear, not in control of her anger, just as Luke wasn't.
Right.
But anyway, that was a big problem I had. But whatever, I'll let it go. I just think that was the worst part of the movie. A lot of the other stuff I can forgive and forget, and I can ultimately forgive and forget that too. But I just don't understand why it needed to happen.
I don't know why either, and I didn't really think of it that way when the movie was playing out, though.
So I feel like her character got shorted in a big bad way. But to balance that, we saw a beautiful story arc and Kylo Ren's story really pay off well. And I think they treated that fantastically. I called it, by the way. I was listening to our last podcast, and everything exactly that I said was going to happen happened.
Really?
With his storyline, yes. And
I don't believe you.
Yeah, no,
It's
listen
documented.
back.
I know.
But anyway, that's neither the point. I think they did a great job. When they do go to Endor and they find the last Wayfinder, that's when the movie changes. And that, in my opinion, that's when I think it got significantly better.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring up, is that once they find, once she goes out to the Death Star and leaves like everybody behind to go out there and actually get it, it all starts changing big time at this point.
Well, because they've
established
everything, gotten where they need to get to move the story to resolution.
Yes. So, and that was my point in the beginning, is that so there was so many things that were having to happen all at one time to get you to this one point. So once all those things converge to this one point, that's really where the movie takes off. That's like the start of the movie there, and you're an hour and 15 minutes in probably. And
or more.
Yeah, or it could be more. It could be an hour and a half. But anyway, she gets on the ship, she finds it, but Kylo Ren appears, literally like appears out of nowhere. And they have a little bit of a tussle, and it's awesome. You've seen it on a lot of the trailers and on posters and stuff where they're fighting in the water. Nobody really knew. I was like, where's this water world at? Makes sense once they're there. But when they're out there fighting and just seeing what Rey can do and seeing what he does, and the way the battle happened with the water splashing in between them, gosh, I liked it a lot. And that right there was the whole turning point for Kylo Ren too, because they have this battle. She kills him, basically. Again, this is huge spoilers. So they fight.
Yeah, that was shocking.
They fight, and he feels Leia at that moment.
Yeah,
that's when
he
Leia
lets his
was
guard
dying.
down. Really.
Yep.
He's got her on the rocks.
Yeah, he had her like pinned down.
He has her dead to rights.
Super tired and wore out, and she was like done.
I loved seeing them both fight, but be so exhausted they can barely lift up their lightsabers.
Yes, that was really cool. That was like a real fight.
Yeah.
It looked like a real fight, because that's what would happen.
Yeah.
People get tired, and she was like so overexerted. Like she's just like slashing wildly at him towards the end there. She knows she's being overtaken. And then, Leia steps in and basically says something to him. And he like stops, and he's like thinking of her or hearing her or doing something in the Force. And she's like, well, I ain't messing around with this, and stabs him in the chest.
Yeah.
Which honestly shocked me. I didn't
Very
think that
shocking.
was going to happen, because she wasn't to that. She's never really been to that point where she'd just kill you, And she realizes it.
Oh, yeah.
Right directly after that happens, she's like, I can't be this person. Well, you already find out that she can force heal things because she did it to a snake for some reason.
Because they needed a way to get out of that tunnel.
Yes. And so she healed the snake. He got out of the way and revealed a big hole. And they got out. So anyway, she can force heal. And it technically isn't something new. It is new in the theatrical release movies, but it is in canon, because I believe they talk about it in certain books. I can't tell you which book, but I think they do. And it's in video games.
Yeah.
But it's a force ability of people. And she does it to Kylo. She saves his life, heals him up, and he realizes like it's something that she didn't have to do. And then they kind of look at each other. Well, then she leaves. She takes his ship.
Yeah.
Runs off in his ship and leaves him stranded there. And he then, this is another part that kind of shocked me, is that Han Solo comes back in this movie.
Yeah, and it's a great scene. It really is.
It's one of the best scenes in the entire movie.
You wouldn't expect it to be. On the surface, you'd almost think how it's possible that could be a little bit hokey. But it does not come across like that at all. It's a very powerful scene. In fact, that whole sequence is powerful, with Kylo and Leia dying, spoilers, and Han Solo coming back. You're not really sure whether or not he's there, or my guess is Leia is projecting a memory onto him.
Yeah, that's a good...
That would be my guess, but you don't really know, and it doesn't need to be explained. It's a beautiful scene, and he throws away his lightsaber, and that is when he is no longer He is now Ben Solo again. Kylo Ren is dead.
Yeah. And he says, I like the point where he's like super vulnerable and he's like, I know what I need to do. I just don't think I'm strong enough.
Which is a beautiful callback to The Force Awakens.
Yes. And
he says the same thing to his dad.
He does.
The same scene.
And then he kills him.
Yeah.
And then he says it and he like looks down at him and he says, I know. And then he turns around, throws it into the water, and then Han's gone.
Yeah.
And he calls him Ben again. And it's just really great. That whole scene is just really, really great. How he got off the ship, though, or how he got off
he found a way.
of the Death Star, I don't know.
So then we move on to like the final set piece. I mean, we're skipping over when I mentioned it briefly, but when Rey goes to, I think it's called Octu, but where she was trained by Luke Skywalker, destroys her plane. She's going to stay there the rest of her life, just like Luke did.
Yep.
Goes to throw away her lightsaber, and Force Ghost Luke catches it. What are you doing? Makes no sense because in the last movie he thought it was. He grabbed the lightsaber and he just threw it. Remember?
Oh yeah, he did.
In a really obnoxious scene, but now it's very valuable. But he is. I thought Luke was good. There were some good exchanges there. Not a lot for him to do here, but he just brings her back, and he does bring his X-wing out for her to use, which is cool.
Yep.
And he gives her Leia's saber, which is a cool moment that,
it was really
they have
cool.
an amazing flashback scene where they do a CGI young Luke and young Leia doing Jedi training
together.
It's never really been confirmed in canon that I know of, at least in new canon, that Leia was actually a Jedi.
Right.
It makes perfect sense, and I'm glad that they did confirm that, and she should be a Jedi. I know they've done it in a lot of the expanded universe books.
I thought they talked about it in that new Jedi Order.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've read books where she's a Jedi, but they're not canon anymore. So.
Oh, okay.
I've read Legends series books, but she gave it up, and obviously everybody knows she's Force sensitive. In The Last Jedi, we saw a lot of that. But
yes.
She in fact is a Jedi. She had a lightsaber, or at least was
just
an apprentice.
during her training.
Yeah.
So during her training, she does all of that stuff, but she basically gives it up right away because what did they say? Because she sensed what was going to happen with Ben, or with Luke, or Luke and Ben.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, basically. We also find out that Finn
is Force
sensitive, which never gets paid off. I thought it would. And they go out of their way to mention it like 6 times.
They do.
Just rub
and
your fake nose
I
in
still
it.
think, because he says something to Rey when they're getting sucked into that pit right on the desert where she heals the snake. And he says, I have something I need to tell you. And then you never hear it. But I think that's what it had to have been. And I know he says it a bunch of times to everybody else, but she was never around when he was saying things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only thing that he could have been telling her.
They've kind of been hinting at that throughout the whole series. I assume that he would take up the mantle of being a Jedi, and maybe he'll get there eventually. They sure go out of their way to point it out all the time, and I'm not really sure why. They don't really pay it off in a big way, but it's clearly, it almost feels like a residue from The Last Jedi when they had the little kid with the broom. They were trying to say that like it's for more people in the universe than just these people.
Yeah.
And they're almost doing that with Rey or Finn, but they don't really pay it off. Any case, they go to the last planet. They have some great battle sequences. X-Wing sequences, things like that.
Yeah.
They have an amazing moment, which sounds like it would be really stupid, but when they're riding horses on a Star Destroyer and shooting bows and arrows.
So yeah, they get to where the Emperor is. They finally find where the Emperor is, and they all shoot over there, and they have this one last big battle where the Resistance is going to take down the First Order, and then they get there and realize like how many ships they actually have, and they're like, oh man, hopefully Lando, because Lando's job was to go find other people in the universe
to
come and help them.
It's Return of the Jedi. That's what this
Yes.
It's
So
Return of the Jedi. They have a second Death Star in the form of all these ships with planet-killing things that, whatever, plot.
yes,
but
and so they're fighting it, and it is at one point in the turret of the Millennium Falcon during that, it is Wedge Antilles.
Yeah.
Wedge comes back, which I think is great that he has a cameo because in A Last Hope he was a really big deal. And
New Hope.
New Hope. Did I say last?
Yeah.
Oh, The Last Hope.
But it's funny. I mean, how similar this is to Return of the Jedi. Like, in Return of the Jedi, they have to go to the forest moon of Endor to take down the shield generator for the Death Star, which is under production. In this one, they have to take down a communications tower to prevent that, and then they move it to the second location, and then they have to take the horses out there to basically take down the lead Star Destroyer, the same as the shield generator. I mean, it's essentially
so
the
that's
same
what you were
thing.
gonna say is like, so then they land on this Star Destroyer and they're running on top of it, but they're riding horses on top of it too. And yeah, you would think it's gonna be really hokey. It was really
pretty
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. They're riding horses.
At one time, she fires like a laser bow and arrow, which is pretty sweet.
Yes, that part was really neat. I liked the whole battle scenes all together. And then at the same time, that's when Rey is going to find the Emperor, and she does. She gets to him, and
inexplicably, she has to kill him through some variety of whatever plot that she needs to kill him so the Emperor can become her, blah 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 blah. Even though when she kills him later on, it doesn't seem to count the second time, only the first time.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
I guess because he kills himself. Really, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess he does kind of, because she just deflects his
energy.
But
there's an
I think it's also what they point out there, and I think what they're trying to convey is that he's telling her this is what's going to happen, and you have to believe me because I'm the Sith Lord, and you're going to be the Sith Lord, and this is what you believe. It's all being like spoken to you as what you believe, and she has like an aha moment of when she's like laying there and asking people to be with her and like, we're with you, like I'm here with you. That's when she realizes like, I don't have to believe any of this. I can just do what I need to do, and I know this is the right thing.
She has the same awakening that Luke Skywalker has in Return of the Jedi on the Death Star when the same moment is happening with the Emperor, because it's the same movie.
Yes, you've said that already. But and then I think that's when she's having that realization of like, I don't have to worry about being a Sith Lord if I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I do like how they have the Emperor in this movie.
Amazing.
That dude is super old. I don't know how they got him to even
He's
act.
not that old.
He has to be.
He was only in Return of the Jedi. You know that, right? He wasn't in Empire or in
I thought he
New
was
Hope.
in Empire.
No. They added him later.
Really?
They added him in the 90s when they redid those movies. They added a scene. And that's probably what you saw.
Yeah, well, I had the original trilogy on VHS.
But you probably saw the second ones then, and that just became part of it for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he wasn't. His first movie was Return of the Jedi, which was like 84, probably somewhere around there. So I mean, he's not that old.
Well, either way, he looks pretty old. I mean, they have the Emperor.
It's amazing because he's almost like a marionette on a
this like
computer,
boom,
like a boom arm.
Boom arms coming down with him at the end of it.
I love what they did with
floating
that.
around.
I like the idea of
Awesome.
like it's a payoff from the prequels. A lot of people are kind of pissed off. They're like, why are you bringing the Emperor back? Can we move this story on? And it's like, but it's established in the prequels. Like he says he finds the method for like eternal life. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that he was the architect of all this stuff. It's really cool when you're going through there and you're seeing like baby Snoke clones in like Bacta tanks.
Yeah.
That are like, he did all that. And then it's cool that he is like obviously created this entire fleet, which on the surface you can be like, okay, this is ridiculous that he has this gigantic fleet. But it's like, okay, but he's like mastered cloning. Mm-hmm. And that makes sense because in Attack of the Clones, that's what they were doing. He is Darth Sidious, and he's the one that went and went to Camino and got the clone army, and he, that's what that's what Sith do. They do cloning. So I don't know whether or not the big gigantic stadium of Sith that he has in there are clones, or they just don't really even exist.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they really even exist.
I think they're like this, how she's all the Jedi. That's all the Sith.
Yeah.
Like the spirits of them. I thought it was cool when they did a scene with her where she's like, I am all the Jedi. And then they have the voices. I think they had like Sam Jackson. They had Ewan McGregor.
Yes.
They had Alec Guinness. They had Hayden Christensen. They had Yoda.
Yep.
They had all of them. Luke Skywalker. I thought that was cool. But once again, the coolest part for me was Kylo's journey, or Ben Solo's journey back to help her as he takes on the Knights of Ren.
Yes, that part was really cool where he's fighting.
And they pass the lightsaber to him through their like connection.
They have a connection, and they can pass things through the Force to each other physically.
Yeah,
which has never been
teasing. They
seen
tease
before.
throughout the movie,
but you never see a physical. Because earlier when they're on the Death Star, or not the Death Star, a Star Destroyer, earlier in the movie, she sees Darth Vader's helmet when Kylo Ren's looking for them on that one planet where they, the bounty hunter becomes their best friend.
Yeah.
That same planet. He's looking for her down there, and they are having a Force connection in their minds, and he doesn't know where she's at. And then she destroys, because they start having a fight, an actual lightsaber battle through that connection, which I thought was really awesome. Like seeing them flash back and forth between each other. And then during that fight, she hits the stand that that Darth Vader's helmet was on, and it drops in front of him, and he can see it. And he's like, so that's where you are.
Yeah.
And I thought that part was really cool.
Yeah.
But then, later on, so he comes back to help her, because after he talked to the old man, he realizes that he's just Ben Solo and he can do this with her. And he goes back. He doesn't have a lightsaber anymore because he threw it into the ocean. And so he just comes back to try to fight the Knights of Ren. They're beating his ass. And then she passes him a lightsaber because they felt each other in the Force. And he pulls out the lightsaber and it's blue. And they look at him, and he kind of just shrugs like, yep. Yeah, I'm just going to use this now. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah. And they have their final showdown with the Emperor, it's great. And Kylo Ren gets knocked off the cliff. She defeats the Emperor. She dies in the process.
He comes back.
He uses his life force. I wouldn't call it force healing. He transfers his life force to her, saves her life. They have a really powerful moment, a powerful kiss. You realize they truly do love each other. They have the entire time.
Yes.
And then he dies.
And then he dies and disappears
into the Force. And it was shocking.
That part was really good.
Really good and really shocking.
Yes. The one thing I don't like about it was just a one small moment, and it was right when he died. So right when he died, they have this kiss, and he's looking at her and smiling and laughing, and then kind of chuckling about it because they just kissed, and then he does this.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I didn't like.
I didn't even notice it. So
is that one little part, and I was like, that was funny.
Yeah.
Just they could have been a little easier of a death, but he literally just does this.
Yeah.
But the scene as a whole is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And honestly, to me, the last half of the movie from the Death Star to that point completely redeemed itself.
I agree. And I said that. We walked out of the movie and I said that. I said the second half redeemed the first half.
Yes.
From there, they have a nice scene, like the Battle of Endor scene, where they're all celebrating. And then the post-log or the epilogue to the movie is her on Tatooine, returning Luke and Leia's lightsabers.
Yes.
And an old lady walks by, asks what her name is. And she sees the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia. And she says, I'm Rey Skywalker.
Yes.
That's the Rise of the Skywalker. Hinting at the fact that, she's not done.
No, she couldn't be done. And that's what you brought up after the movie, because you've always said, this isn't actually over. The Skywalker saga to that point is, but now it'll probably continue with Rey.
Yeah.
In a different...
And Finn, I'm guessing, will be
Finn and Poe will still be involved, I'm sure.
So as we're talking about the first half of the movie was rough, but still enjoyable.
It's all very enjoyable,
And
I think.
it's a fun movie. It's a very fun movie. It does a good job. The second half of the movie, the whole movie has a lot of problems throughout, but second half of the movie is very entertaining. It's very good, and it redeems the first half, and it actually does get you pretty excited and pumped. At no point in this movie do I feel the emotional stakes and the gravitas of it being the conclusion of 40 years of Star Wars.
I would agree with that.
And that's an issue.
Well, the only time I felt like that I felt like any stakes at all was when they were finally directly in front of the Emperor. And only because they're standing directly in front of the Emperor, and there's only one way out of there.
Yeah.
It's either you win or you lose. Like, those are the stakes at that moment. And everything is building upon that moment, obviously. But she knows that this is it. This is it. Like, this either wins it or I die, you know? And that was the only time I felt the weight of what she was doing because of the situation she was in. And then the situation that everyone else was in, fighting, you know, all of the various Star Destroyers and people flying around out in space, because he opens up like a skylight and she can see all of that. But that's the only time I felt like there was an actual stakes.
Yeah.
Other than that, like you had said before, there was really no reason in the beginning for them to have to go find him.
Right.
Like, if he had sent out the Star Destroyers already to like go blow everything up, that's when I would say like, holy shit, like they need to do something about that. But prior to this, they have no knowledge of the fleet that the Emperor has until they get there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It was like, there's just a lot of rushing to move to the next plot point and rushing the movie in general. But overall, it's fine. I mean, when I walked out of that movie, I walked out of it with the opinion of, you know, I didn't care for the first half, and I really liked the second half, and overall, I was really happy, and I had a great time.
Yes.
That's how I walked out. The next day, I started reading reviews and stuff, and really, I mean, just to catch everybody up, the reviews are terrible. The critical reviews.
Yeah.
The fan reviews are very high. It's a complete opposite of The Last Jedi, where the critic reviews were like 96%. The fan reviews were like 50%.
Right.
It's a complete opposite. It's a very divisive movie. And I understood that. And so I started reading the reviews, and I literally couldn't find fault with any of the negative reviews. I agreed with almost all of them.
Okay.
And you would have probably agreed as well, because they were all making very valid points.
Right.
But ultimately, after a while, I sat there and thought about it, and I go, okay, or you can just appreciate it for what it is.
So that's where I'm at. I am a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I will forever be a Star Wars fan, and I will forever be a fan of this saga or series of trilogies. No matter what, you know, I've always backed the prequels. Even like when those were coming out, I thought they were the best things that I'd ever seen at the time. I was super young at the time, but I thought they were like the best things, you know, because it's the only thing we had gotten. And when these movies came out, like, I liked The Force Awakens when it came out. I liked Last Jedi when it came out, even though there's a lot of issues with it and whatnot. Well, I've always said I kind of like the movie.
I will say this movie made me appreciate The Last Jedi more.
I think this movie's better than that, though.
I don't. I think The Last Jedi is a better movie, thematically, plot-wise, pacing-wise, and I think it established a lot of interesting things moving forward that this movie essentially just kind of tossed. In the same way that The Last Jedi tossed just like everything from The Force Awakens,
yes,
this movie did back to The Last Jedi. Now, I know there's a lot of thoughts like, oh, well, JJ did the first one, Ryan Johnson kind of threw him the middle finger and redid everything, and then JJ kind of did it back with this one. Not the case. I guess JJ was very involved in the script and everything to do with The Last Jedi. I think it was all kind of planned out to a certain extent.
I didn't know.
From what I've read. But it definitely was disjointed from The Last Jedi. They had a lot of things they started that they threw away.
Yeah.
Not sure why they did that. But and this movie does have a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of things that don't pay off. Ultimately, though, it's a good time at the movies. It's hard. You know, this movie came out the same year as Endgame.
I don't even rank it on the same.
That's my problem, though. Levels. Like, this is Star Wars. It needs to be as good as Endgame.
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that Endgame was at such a higher level. I'm saying I don't rank them in the same vein.
Yeah.
Because
They're
Star Wars is
movies.
Star Wars, yes, and Marvel is Marvel, and they are completely different movies.
But we have to get to a point where they can be as good as Endgame and Infinity War.
I completely agree with you. We weren't going to get that here, though. We weren't going to get that with the Star Wars movies that were being made.
I think we need to
because of the stories.
And in retrospect, looking back, and we'll talk about this more, you know,
I think there is one movie of Star Wars that is on par with that.
I do agree too. We'll get to that. But my point is, these movies are, they are, I don't want to say fan service because that's like a popular thing people are saying right now. These movies are retreads of the original trilogy.
They are.
The Force Awakens is A New Hope. The Last Jedi is Empire. And this movie is Return of the Jedi. They are exactly the same movies, beat for beat, on purpose.
Yeah, that's done so
with
definitely
new
on
characters.
purpose.
Whereas the original trilogy, or the prequel trilogy, which was written and directed by George Lucas, was under the vein of George Lucas. They didn't do that. George Lucas didn't have creative control of this. I think it would have been better if he did. I think we would have moved a story forward in a more mature way that actually pushed the universe forward. But that's not what we got here. We got retreads, and that's fine. They did it in a way that's homage, and it was entertaining. The visual effects were stunning and amazing. They were exciting. They were adventurous. And this is the best example in this third movie we've gotten of really terrific acting from Poe, Finn, and Rey. This is the first time we've got to see Rey do anything, really.
Yes, absolutely. You get to see her do a lot, and she acts very well, I think.
And Finn, too. He's been kind of almost, I don't want to say obnoxious, but he hasn't been my favorite character, and he was great in this movie. And Poe was phenomenal in this movie.
And Kylo. Like, I don't think Kylo really did much in the other two movies, and I think he was really whiny and a baby, and I think they elevated his character a lot more in this movie, and he got to act. He actually got to act instead of pout.
Yeah, and his storyline, I don't want people to think I'm trashing it totally. His storyline from top to bottom in this movie was fantastic.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of really good things about this movie.
Mm-hmm. I've been picking apart things that were wrong with it. I really like this movie.
Yeah,
I really do.
Well. I'm excited to see it again. I wasn't the first day or so afterwards. I thought, not that I was not excited. I was just like, I don't really need to see it again. But now I really want to see it again.
Yeah, see, this was one of the first ones out of the new trilogy that I wanted to see it again right away.
Okay.
Like I did. The other two, I wasn't like that. I was like, okay, that's what they are. And I liked them, but I was like, that's just what they are. And every one of them I've seen more than once, obviously. But this one I was like, I would go back tomorrow to see this again.
Yeah.
I didn't get to do that, but I was of the mindset that I would see it immediately.
Yeah. So that's it. Anything else?
No, that's my review. Overall, I think it's a good film, but we have a lot to cover.
We have a lot to cover, and we have a short amount of time to do it. So we're going to get into our top. So to wrap that up, to put a little bow on that package.
Yes.
Definitely see it. If you're listening to this, you've probably already seen it.
You need to go see it if you haven't already, because we just ruined it. I mean, we did not ruin it because we didn't say it all in order. Like we jumped around worse than the movie does.
My bow on the package is that it was a solid, entertaining adventure movie with amazing special effects and some really hard-hitting good scenes, and I enjoyed it a lot. We forget to mention that she created her own lightsaber, which is
Oh yeah, at the end of the movie, she creates her own lightsaber that's yellow.
amazing. I'm excited for the franchise going forward. I think they're going to carry forward in this story. But there's lots of good things about it. There's some rough stuff about it. But that's Star Wars. Every Star Wars movie has good things about it and rough stuff about it.
Absolutely.
I don't care. If this had cheesy dialogue, definitely. Every Star Wars movie has cheesy dialogue.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that. Uninterested. It has
Doesn't bother me in the
funny
slightest.
moments, fun moments, great action sequences. As a hardcore, listen, if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan and you're getting your hardcore Star Wars fandom from the franchise movies, you're looking in the wrong places. There's books, there's video games,
Yeah. Oh, for
there's TV series. That's where you're getting your fandom at. Go watch The Mandalorian, get sucked into that. Go watch The Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, read some books. Appreciate the movies for what they are.
Absolutely, but Star Wars as a whole has so much more to offer.
Yeah.